Good morning. So we're going to get started with our presentation today, which is about tents, tent weights, outdoor setup must-haves. And the goal is to educate you guys a little bit on different types of tents and weights that are out there and really give you some firsthand experience of what can happen if you don't weigh your tent down correctly. So just to start off, our exhibitor toolkit, which you can find on the blog, has lots of great resources if you're just getting started or if you're a veteran with different types of things you want to have at every event, especially outdoor events. So our link to our Pinterest board with display ideas, suppliers for displays, grid walls, and racks, my go-to vendors for banner signs and backdrops, our electric power boxes that you should invest in, Wi-Fi hotspots, ABC fire extinguisher link, because we do require that you have a fire extinguisher with you at all events, and other tools that you need to have on site. So that's just a helpful link. We're not going to be going into the details of these things today. We're talking specifically about tents and weights. So what is the goal of your tent? There's really only one goal, and that is to provide you and your customer shade. Something I get a lot is well, I want this custom tent, I want it to be a pretty tent, I want my tent to stand out, and those are all great things that can help, but they're very minimal in the big scheme of things. The main point of your tent is to provide you and your customer shade. So that's what we're looking for. And then the second thing we're looking for is, does it fit in your booth and is it going to survive? So this is one of the most common tents I see out there, and I'll just tell you right now, I absolutely hate it. It's called a slant leg canopy tent, and what that means is the legs themselves actually slant. They don't go straight up and down. And so it comes in a 10 by 10 size, and you can buy it at Academy for $50. It's the starter tent. This is just the absolute thing that you can afford, you can't afford anything more than this, then of course I want you to go ahead and get started. So go ahead. But if you have just $50 more, then go for the next tent on the slide. The other thing is, a lot of people go for the Academy blue, which I just hate. And I say stick with white or light colors. For us, for Big Top, we do not have a requirement on tent colors. So we will allow different colors of tents, but there are shows that only allow white tents. So I always say buy white, because then you'll be covered no matter what. But when it comes to lighting and sun, the white looks the best. And it gives you the most sunlight under your tent so people can see your products. What I've seen a lot of times with the colored tent tops is it casts that color on your product. So now everything has a blue tinge or a red tinge or a turquoise tinge. So I would stick with white, or this kind of khaki color is also good. Second best choice. This is a straight leg canopy tent. So these tent legs are straight, which means you're guaranteed it's going to fit within your booth. And the retail price is $99, and it's a pretty good starter tent. They do last. Eventually you'll have to replace them. Tents do break, and you just kind of need to put it in your budget that you might need to buy one tent a year. Now these are kind of new. They're called awning canopies. This particular one is from Amazon, and those are good. What I like about this design is that it has some ventilation in the top, which just helps with airflow. But keep in mind with your awnings that you're not always going to be able to use them. When you come to Big Top and most events, you are getting a 10 by 10 space and you are in line, which means there's another booth directly next to you. So I will have people call and say, well, I have an awning or I have a 14 by 14 tent. Can't you make it work for me? And it's just not possible, because then the whole aisle and the whole row would be thrown off. So keep that in mind, that if you're always wanting to use this awning, if you're in line, you would make this the front of your tent so you can use it for customers walking by. And then you would have this awning down in the back. You can also use it if you have a corner space or a freestanding booth, which I think this is really great for freestanding booths. That means you have no exhibitor on any side of you. Now, this set here from Easy Up, and Easy Up is probably, like, I think they're the originator of the pop-up tent and the go-to, and I think the quality is slightly better than the Academy brands. But these have walls included, and walls are very important for at night. And we're going to get into some videos of real life situations that have happened at Big Top, and you'll see why walls are so important. Do you have to have walls? No. Can you get away with it? Absolutely. Especially though, if you have smaller items like jewelry, things that are lightweight that can fly away easily, I would highly recommend walls at night. Now, during the day, they can be a lifesaver or they can be absolutely traumatic. They can be a lifesaver if there's wind, right? Because it's going to help block that wind for you. But if it's hot and humid outside, it makes it like a greenhouse and it becomes very humid and almost you can't even breathe within your tent. So I would say pack your walls with you and then make a judgment call based on the weather, based on where you are, if you need them or not. And this is my absolute favorite from bestofsigns.com. They come in 10 by 10s or 10 by 20s, and they're completely customizable. They also have different wall configurations. So this one has half walls, but you can also do full walls. You could get 4 walls. You can kind of do whatever you want and piece it together, and you pay per piece. But this setup right here, completely customized, is $12.74. And this is where I think colored tents do make sense. If you've dialed in your brand and you have branding colors and a logo and you really want to stand out, I think Pickle Smash, they have a green tent that's customized with their logo and it looks really, really nice. But if you're going with standard tents, I would go with white. If you're going customized tents, then go all out. And these are the tents that we have, and these are commercial pole tents. They are substantially more expensive. However, they typically will last longer. So the top is canvas, sorry, not canvas, like vinyl. So it's fairly waterproof, where the other tents tend to be a canvas, so water can't get through them. They do help shield you from the rain, but eventually they will get saturated and water will come through. The vinyl tent tops here tend to help wick away more water, so they keep you drier longer. The other thing is they're not a pop-up. Each piece is a solid metal and they clip together by cotter pins, so there's not as many pieces to break. And what I mean by that is with the pop-up tents, a lot of times what will happen is these little knuckles here, or how the tent is like an accordion at the top, one of these pieces will bend, one of these little plastic clips will break, and then pretty much your entire tent just has to be thrown away in the trash and you have to replace it. This one doesn't have as many mechanical pieces because they're individual straight poles and then they're put together by a cotter pin. So it's very unlikely to have a component break. But if you do, let's just say you have this leg snap in half for some reason, then you could always just replace that one leg and not have to replace your entire tent. So it is a little bit more of an investment up front, but they're much more durable to last you longer. Now, what are the goals of our weights? There's really only one goal, and that's to keep your tent from flying away. It's just that basic, guys. These are what I call the hockey puck weights. They don't work. Just don't even get these. We don't recommend them. Each weight itself is only 5 pounds, and we recommend 50 pounds per leg just for weight. So that's 200 pounds in total for your entire tent. So 5 pounds a piece, you're going to need to put these all the way up each leg just to get to that weight. The other thing is that the tent leg slides into this little opening here, and most of the time, as soon as the wind blows, the leg moves and it comes out of that weight, and then now you have no protection at all. So do not recommend these hockey puck weights. Now, these are sandbag weights that typically they will Velcro onto the leg. For this particular one, each bag can hold up to 45 pounds of sand. So you're almost at that 50 pound per leg that we recommend. And I've also seen people double up on these. So instead of just getting 4, they'll get 2 sets. So they have 8 and they can do 2 per leg, which is really the best way to make sure that your tent stays weighed down. I give it a rating 5 out of 10 because there are a few other options that are better, but it's a really good middle of the road way to get started in weighing down your tent. And they work great. They're not the best for high winds. They're the best for everyday use. All right, so now I'm going to show you guys some pictures of real events that have happened. So this is at a Waco venue, and just in the middle of the night while we were closed, just some really crazy winds came through and tore up the venue. No one was on site, and this is what we all walked into on Sunday morning. And so I'm going to walk you around a few things that you can see here. So you see this guy right here, his tent actually is completely gone. I'm not sure if we found it or not. He had no weights on his tent, no walls or anything. And so you can see the tent flew away and then his complete display was wrecked. Opposed to his neighbor who had weighed down the tent as well as secured grid wall. You can see up here, they actually had bungeed their grid wall to the top of their tent. And we're going to talk about that more in a minute, but that is one of the key takeaways is you always want to weigh down from the top of your tent and not just the bottom. So you can see here, they used 2 hockey puck weights. So it did work for them, but I'm telling you what really saved them was having this grid wall anchored from the top and then all of their product on it. So just the weight of that grid wall plus their product really helped keep this tent down. And then of course it was evenly distributed because they had the same thing over here. And you can also see that their signs, they had little bungees on all of their signs, keeping them on the grid wall. And so that also helped in keeping it all put together. Here's a video, and these are the sandbag weights. So you can see here that they doubled them up and then they secured them with bungees to keep them attached, and it worked really well for them to keep everything secure. Here's a DIY option. They had used a cinder block, and you see instead of just tying it to the bottom, they actually fed it through the top of their tent. And that way it gave even weight distribution and helped hold the top of the tent down. And why this is so important is because the frame really isn't going anywhere unless we have like some hurricane winds. It's more or less going to stay there. It's a piece of metal. However, when you put the top on it, now you've just made a kite. And so the wind comes under and up, and then all of that upward pressure, it wants to lift the kite up and off the ground. So a lot of times when you have just the weights at the bottom, they'll just snap off, or it might even just snap your tent in half and take the top half off. When you secure from the top, it really helps to do weight distribution and keep that tent pulled down. I wanted to show you here a bunch of tents that had the wall wrappings that I showed you guys, and they all looked really good inside. The tent stayed up, and again, those walls just help from that downward pressure getting under the tent and launching it. And then you see this guy here, although he had attempted to do some walls, it looks like he only had maybe one on the front and it was not secured. And you can see where he came from. Just kind of popped right out in between these 2 tents and flew away. So another reason why the walls are a good idea for at night, and especially 360, so walls all the way around your tent, not just in the front. Now here is a DIY option that we see often, and it's a great option because it's cement, so it just has all the weight. And this is just a piece of PCV pipe that they've cut down. You can glue a cap on the bottom. Before you glue the cap on the top, you put in an eye hook, and then you can glue the cap on here. And you could fill these with cement or sand or a mix. Cement is definitely going to be heavier, so we recommend cement or a mix of cement and sand. Now, this person took their DIY to the next level, and you can see them here, how tall they made their weights. And so what they did was they actually took these drawer pulls and screwed them in before they filled it. And so one, that just makes for easier transport, so that way it's not so cumbersome to hold on to and grab. Here's another video of it. So you could see they could use those handles not only for transport, but they could use those handles to help secure this to the tent. And again, it goes back to the weight distribution because they made them so tall. Most tents are about 8 feet tall. So I have no doubt this is a minimum of 5 feet. Of pipe, and then of course they filled it with sand and concrete, and they put those handles to make it easier to transport. But it's just giving that even weight distribution, and this is a 10 by 20 tent. They have 6, they have one on every single leg. And then they also have their walls as well, and inside their items are very light jewelry. And I had a video of looking inside, and nothing, it looked like not one single thing was out of place. So a great option here as well to take it to the next level. And at the end of the day, there's nothing more devastating than your tent being ripped out from under you, and it flying away, getting broken, all of your inventory getting broken, your display all over the place. It's not a fun time. So we just highly recommend that before you even get there, have a plan in mind, have your weights, know how you're going to secure your items, even if you think that the weather is fine, because a lot of times we start out with fine weather, but then we have winds that kick up, we have a rain shower that rolls in here, there, and whatnot. So it's kind of one of the things with the outdoor events that you just need to be prepared for, is to have the correct tent and have the correct weights. And feel free to email us or hit us up on social media if you have any questions at all.